Thank you. Apologies for starting a few minutes early. We have one of our panelists is very hotly required by lots of people this week. We've got to get her out of here on time. So we're going to kick off with pioneering media to impact, a topic that I am very, very passionate about. I am Fiona Lloyd. For those of you who don't know me, I'm the global president for CARA. And I would love the panelists now to introduce themselves.
Hi, my name is Beatrice. I'm Italian, you can guess, and I had the pleasure to lead marketing and communication for MasterCard for Europe, Middle East and Africa, and Asia Pacific.
Hi, I'm Pooja Dabari, and I'm Managing Director of the International Alliance for Responsible Drinking. Brings together the leading beer, wines and spirits companies, their global CEOs, specifically around reducing harmful drinking.
And my name's Ali Keith. I'm the global head of marketing. I wish. No, global head of media.
Soon.
Maybe. Global head of media excellence at Kraft Heinz.
So absolutely delighted, fierce female panel this morning talking about how we can pioneer impact. And I think media has become one of those words that if I was to ask all of you how you define media, you would all give me a different answer. Media is an experience, media is a channel, paid media, media means so many different things to organizations. And that's what we're going to get into today is really how brands and agencies can really make sure that media has the stage that we believe it should have within all organizations. So the first question I'm going to ask to our brand owners, Bea and Ali, is how do you within your organizations define impact within media, and what are the dimensions that are most significant for your brands?
I think the dimensions, so we talk at Kraft Heinz about being creativity at the speed of culture. And I think where we want to expand on that is now into creative effectiveness, and really how it's not just about being creative, it's really how does it make an impact, both in terms of on the consumer, but also for good as well. So that's really the ambition for the next couple of years, is how do we move from being really efficient and really creative into building that ecosystem of effectiveness and impact.
Yeah, so let me just zoom out a second before answering to your question, just to put into the right perspective. MasterCard has been one of the first companies that started to talk about the importance of experience. 25 years ago, we were bold enough to say there is something that money can't buy. For everything else, there is MasterCard. So, and 25 years later, everybody's talking about experience. So when you want to talk about experience and you want to be relevant for consumers within the experience, media, for me, is not one component, is the component. Is the only way that I have to touch base with my consumer and possibly to have a one-to-one conversation. On the other side, the situation is starting to be complex. Budget is always decreasing. So that's why, at the end of the day, the impact has a very important relevant. So, and you know that we are doing a great exercise with you in order to understand how we can reshape the approach that we are having on media.
Yeah. So building on the back of that question, how would you define the role of your media agency now? Ali, if we could come back to you first.
I mean, your media agency is always your most important partner, in my view, because they can help shape your agenda, but they can also help you meet it. And it's unique in the sense that I believe media is kind of the closest that you get to your consumer. It's the last thing that they see before they see your physical product in a store. So really partnering so closely and finding new ways and having a learning agenda with your media agency and really setting yourselves, high goals, but with measurable targets along the way, about how you can achieve what you want to for your brands. And we're different in the sense that we have 70 to 100 brands. And all of them will be slightly different. And having a media partner that can have the scale and the understanding from everything from Lunchables, which is for kids, through to, you know, Heinz, which is a huge global icon, is invaluable to us and helping us navigate how we drive for impact and really achieve our sort of ESG sustainability, but also just our cultural goals that we have for our brands is super important.
Yeah. And let me build on that. I think when I started almost 30 years ago, the media planning and the media discussion was coming always at the end. I really believe that right now, I mean, that's where we are starting, because that is the way that I have to communicate to my consumer. And I think that's why the importance of the media agency for me has been completely changed. And actually, I think we need to change the word, because at the end of the day, what we are doing, we are creating content. Mm-hmm. And my content needs to be curated based on the channel or based on the consumer journey that I want to talk to my consumer. So that's why we are working very hard with all of you to create a new platform for impact and the attention planning, because our consumers are always plenty, they're receiving a lot of ads. Actually, we have our CMO that says advertising is dead. That's why I really feel that the paradigm has completely changed. So what I'm expecting from you, that you are leading the way, not the creative agency anymore.
Yeah. So amazing, right? As a when you sit here doing my job, it's just like a gift what you've just been saying there, because obviously we passionately believe that. But in terms of people's knowledge of media and the power of media and what media is able to unlock for business growth, not all of the C-suite are on the same page with regards how we define that and the journey that we need to go on. And actually, I was saying this morning, Pooja and I were doing a panel this morning, that actually in the last 12 months, our strategists have spent more time talking to the finance community within our clients' organisations than ever before, because bringing CFOs on the journey, having them understand the impact that we can create is really, really important. So let's just think about now and think about those conversations that happen within the C-suite. Bear, as a CMO, how do you manage the expectations? How do you go about making sure that you're having impact within those rooms to define media in the right way?
So this is a great question. Now, our CMO, Raja Manar, always says, whenever you are speaking with the business, you need to speak the business language if you want to be heard. And actually, media, it's the only part that can give me the content that I need. Let me give you an example. So MasterCard has been doing, of course, MasterCard is in the experiential marketing. We are in the passion. We connect everyone to process possibility. So we made an analysis, understanding the impact of the, which is the name of one of the most important singer. It's out of my mind. Anyway, the impact of a concert that is happening in US. And what we discovered is that when the concert was made, there was a 68% increase of the volume of all the restaurant, 40% of the accommodation. I'm speaking the real language. Yeah. So in my case, when I'm going to my CFO, which is not making my life easier, I have to tell you, what I need to demonstrate, it's not anymore the open rates, the old way of doing the reach, which can be a little bit manipulated, let's be honest. But what I'm demonstrating is that thanks to a specific activity, I can increase my revenues, not just the brand, which is very important, my revenues by this percent. And that is the conversation that I'm having with my CFO.
And how about you, Ali, as a head of media? How do you go about having those conversations?
I agree. Speaking their language is super important. but also having the correct measurement strategy in place. So we're standing up a global CMM program so that we can actually pre-designate, if you give us X amount of revenue, we guarantee, loosely, that we should be able to increase revenues by X% in this way, and being very granular with them about the tactics that you're going to use. And yes, we've done some amazing presentations to our finance teams in the last year or so that we call Media for Finance, and we put it in their language and we explain why it works and why it's not a cost and why we invest in it and why it's fuel for growth. And with the new strategy that Kraft Heinz has put in place in the last year, we're really about fueling growth and really sort of looking at how we increase top line, not just increase bottom line, and seeing media and marketing as an investment to drive that. But yeah, having tangible measurement platforms in place that can be summarized and can be given to them on a regular basis, but also making them part of the conversation. We're all still part of the same business. We're all responsible for parts of the P&L, and helping them to lean in and leaning into their part as well.
Just changing tack now a little bit to bring in Pooja to this conversation. So media now has a responsibility, yes, to drive growth, but to drive sustainable impact as well. And that's becoming a conversation that is increasingly important and is increasing in volume across the industry. And I actually met Pooja maybe 6 months ago now, when Dentsu Creative was involved in deploying some training for our influencers within the organisation, to making sure that we were adhering to standards. And organisations like IARD and GARM, which is part of the WFA, play a really, really important role in galvanising advertisers, tech companies, agencies, to really come together to tackle those issues together so that we can move very, very quickly. So just talk a little now about your experience from that you sit in and working with the C-suite around media.
It's quite interesting about this investor relations conversation, actually, because coming at it from a regulated industry, investor relations absolutely, when the analysts are looking at it, are looking at sustainable business practices, and they're looking at what companies are doing, particularly within my sector, beer, spirits and wine, around making sure that they're following their responsible duties. Because at the end of the day, you're not going to have sustainable brands otherwise. And so it's absolutely critical to the CFO that the work that we do around standards is embedded. I think the real opportunity around media is that you have so much power to help change and mold social norms. And, I've got companies from Heineken to Pernod Ricard, all sorts, looking at low and no. And that's about consumers, because consumers want more choice. They want innovation through brands. But it also then is about how do you make sure that you're promoting more moderation within cultures? How are you preventing binge drinking? How are you, and I think from the media partnership perspective, how are you stopping kids from seeing alcohol ads? No alcohol company wants to sell alcohol to kids. So let's just not put them on. Let's try and do all we can do to make sure they don't see the advertising. And I think digital is a really important space for that. And what we've really loved doing, working alongside agencies like Dentsu, but also across the e-commerce platforms and with other companies, is go, okay, so we've got these standards for influencer marketing. How do these get embedded across the value chain? How do we really make sure that kids don't see the ads? How do we really make sure that influencers are transparent about the fact that this is an ad? How do we get influencers to think about the way in which that they can convey their messages responsibly? It's about a whole system change. But it goes absolutely fundamental to how we keep business growth and sustainability at the heart of everything we do.
And do you think organisations are making the progress that we need to be making?
I think slowly but surely is a word. I think the more that we can come together, and the more that we systematise it, the better and the faster we can do things and really accelerate progress. I think there's been, a fair amount of grandstanding, but people are getting caught out by it. The authenticity absolutely has to be there. And I've got a really good example. It's probably one of the best bits of creative I've seen from Heineken. It was a Tecate ad in Mexico around domestic violence. They got together with NGOs. They worked with the government to create something which said, if you're going to abuse a woman, then this brand isn't for you. And I think more and more absolute authentic action that involves actually all of society, it's beyond the private sector, that really tries to achieve positive change, the more we can do and the more we can accelerate it.
And if I can build on that, which I agree completely, but if just for a moment we isolate this value part, which is extremely important, to answer to your question if we are doing enough, I think we are in a very important moment where we can't do differently. So that's why you as an agency are playing an important role. Because if you see the criteria, so brand safety, it's something that from a reputational perspective for us is extremely important. The second level is the impact, so the attention planning. And we discover, for example, that with the attention planning, we have monitor more than 1 billion of contact. And with the attention planning, we have been able to increase the performance by 58%. But while you are increasing the performance, you are also working versus the wasted media, which means that you are much more sustainable. So again, to talk about the CFO language, even if we take aside the value, which we will never as a global brand, from a real business perspective, it does make a lot of sense.
Ali, would you like to build on that?
Yeah, we have a value at Kraft Heinz that says we'll do the right thing. Sustainability only makes sense for us. If the world gets hotter and there's more drought, there's no tomatoes, there's no ketchup, we don't have a business. It makes business sense, but it's also the right thing to do. So I love working with like the WFA and with GARM and with many other industry bodies to go, how do we just get better? We should always be striving to be better in media. And I think sustainability, working with partners for that, for which Cara has done amazing pilots for us in carbon calculation, not just in digital, but across the full media suite to really help us understand the impact of what we're doing and how we can reduce that and increase the attentiveness, which we've also proven has great business impact and we're able to measure. But I think also, we have big budgets, but when we put them all together with our agency partners, you have massive power within the industry that we're happy to contribute to. And I think there's always ways that both the agency and us as businesses can challenge each other for what we want to achieve. And it was amazing to see yesterday the presentation with ISBA talking about accessibility in advertising as well, which again, it's an underserved community when it comes to advertising, which is a business opportunity, but it's also, again, it's just the right thing to do. And that all has an impact in the longer term, both reputationally, but also, hopefully, a positive impact for consumers in the longer term as well.
So, obviously, against all of this, we're talking daily with clients about the need for delivery of short-term sales versus long-term brand building and how you drive the right balance within that. And obviously then this conversation is an additional layer to that conversation, which I guess is why we've been speaking so much to the finance community. But in, cost of living crisis, all of that's going on, how do you keep this conversation front and center? of the conversations that you're having, so that it just doesn't become another thing, and the good intentions then land specifically in actions day to day, and delivering that at scale across the brands that you work with across the world.
I think you have to bake it into your business and your people's objectives. You know, we do have a very strong culture at Kraft Heinz of doing the right thing. It's genuine. It's not just something that's written on walls and is some sort of fancy mission statement. But I think baking it into showing business outcomes, you know, you can show that by doing more attention-based media, you are more sustainable. You know, having that measurement and showing that it is actually building your brand. It's not a fluffy on-the-top thing of like efficient media and striving for cheap CPMs. Actually, you can do short-term whilst it builds your long-term brand growth as well. Yeah. It doesn't have to be either or.
But sometimes you have to take a big bet as well. And you guys did that with the work that we did in Italy with you with Plasmon, where you know that's not going to pay back the work that you did there for many years, really. Talk a little bit about that work, Ali.
Oh, it's beautiful. I don't think it actually got any shortlists in Cannes this year, which is a huge disappointment. So we did Plasmon is like the most famous baby food in Italy. Everybody has it. That's what you start, you know, weaning your kids on. It's an icon. However, Italy has the fastest declining birth rate in Europe, and at this rate, the last baby would be born in Italy in 2050. That's only 26 years away. There would be no more Italian nonnas with great big loads of grandkids running around. And, you know, that's a devastating image in Italy. You know, it would be horrendous. So we recognize this. And if there's no babies, we have no business. So again, not only is it good for business, it's also the right thing to do. Because what we noticed was maternity and paternal leave in Italy practices is shocking, and the legislation doesn't support growing families. So people are having less children. Everything has an impact. So we wanted to highlight this. So we filmed a 7-minute mockumentary with Adamo, the last baby born in Italy. It's a beautiful piece of video, but it is very sad when you look at it and you think about Italy with no children and, you know, all of this. You know, no schools. He doesn't have a nursery. You know, there's no toy shops. All of these kind of things that you just... I know we took it to the extreme, but it's actually, you know, a reality of the future if we don't support growing families. And as part of that, we then launched a petition. I can't remember the numbers, but millions and millions of people watched, signed. It actually went, the video was shown as the opening for one of the biggest conferences of leadership in the Italian sort of governments and business. And as a result, hundreds of businesses started changing their maternity and paternity leave benefits. Millions of people just started talking about it as a conversation. And for us, it's not a campaign. It's something that will live on across the years and will actually become a platform of, you know, we're not just selling baby food, we're supporting families in Italy. And I think that's hugely powerful. The government's changing legislation there. Hundreds of companies, as I said, change their policies. So you're actually genuinely having an impact, not on people's lives just right now, but on their future planning of what they want to do for the rest of their lives. And millions of people who would maybe had said, I simply cannot afford to start a family, it is not sustainable for me, can maybe start to rethink that as a you know, a nice conversation to have with their family.
By the way, I'm Italian, and really kudos for what you did. It was an amazing, I say, piece of content, very inspiring. But I think what consumer perceived is that you have the rights to say what you said. So you have been authentic to yourself, and you have a space and a role to play. And actually, consumers were somehow expecting you to play that role. And I think this is very important. And also the way you have been creating, let's call the media plan or whatever, has been extremely respectful and extremely authentic. So it's not only you are working for your P&L, because that is what the right things to do, but you are creating and giving a legacy, which I think the consumers are really appreciating.
I think as a brand, if your consumers choose you, and especially when you're lucky enough to work with the iconic brands that we do, you should stand up for your consumers as well as standing up for the planet and yourself and your business.
Yeah. Positively advocating for people as much as understanding. And that's something we talk about a lot. Cara? Puja, any other examples you want to share? I'm really enjoying this conversation of you actually talking about work, because I think it really lands the conversation in practical terms.
Yeah, I think for me, the short term versus the long term, there's a bit of a conversation that I sort of live in with the World Health Organization and the United Nations system, particularly dealing with harmful use of alcohol, which is, it's both about the short and long term, which is if you don't make those decisions around social responsibility now, then regulation and bans and restrictions will come your way. And it goes back to consumers want businesses to act responsibly. They want businesses, particularly within my sector, to promote moderation, to show the way in terms of top tips about what people can do to moderate their drinking. And unless we do that, both in the short and the longer term, frankly, the products will get banned. Marketing will get banned. There's a whole element which is actually self-regulation is the way forward. If we work together to do the right thing, it's cheaper for governments. It's what our consumers expect. And frankly, it's what the analysts that look at the investor relations element expect and will determine share prices on. So it absolutely makes sense to really focus in both for the short and the longer term on these things.
Yeah. So obviously part of the ecosystem of how we can deliver impact is the partners, right? And how they come to the table. So I'd love to understand from all of you, how have your expectations of the tech platforms and your media partners shifted over the last few years? How do you what are your expectations from them in terms of how they come to the table and partner with you to deliver impact?
I mean, the expectations have skyrocketed, and I think that's potentially because the quality of some of what some of them are doing has declined massively. I could talk about data ethics all day long. I won't. But the expectations of them, and I do feel like their share price should be affected by whether they're supporting sustainability. You know, when you start hearing that somebody wants to start, because they have to build so many data centers, they want to start burying them in the sea. I'm like, the sea's already getting warmer. Maybe don't put a data center under there. Yes. There should be that expectation of using the dollars that we have for good and making media choices on the basis of whether our values align with those media partners. Not just their values. I don't care about their values and what they write on the wall. Their actions and the way that they interact with our consumers as well. I use this phrase a lot. I don't want to stalk people around the internet with data that they didn't want me to use. I don't believe that that is a good consumer experience, and I don't believe that that is how my brand should be represented. And we have the opportunity with our media plans to show the values that we expect our media partners to have. And I think it's a conversation that needs to be had, not just about CPMs and performance, but actually, who are they as a company and what do they believe in, and is that the right partner to be working with?
I approach this slightly differently, which is that we've been, as IARD, working alongside the platforms, so the big tech platforms for the last 7 years. And I think the way in which we've approached this is from a spirit of partnership to how to get that incremental change. So we're getting to the same point. And over the last week, we actually launched a statement of intent with them around age assurance. So how can you have shared responsibility to make sure that those people who receive alcohol ads are over the legal purchase age? And by coming at it from a spirit of partnership, how do we work for you? How do we get into your engineering recognizing all the other elements that they are currently battling with. How do we get into your pipeline? How do we make those incremental changes? I mean, one of the most proudest moments in my career, and I work for Bernardo's and vulnerable children. One of the proudest moments is when the Google ecosystem decided that actually they were going to introduce an opt-out of alcohol advertising. And that was, they did it for alcohol and then they've taken it to gambling and stuff. That was a direct result of IR-DAS, but it was because we approached it in a spirit of partnership. Yeah. We're trying to change things together as opposed to going, you guys, you're behaving this way and we're the good guys. I think when we get more and more people around the table, the stronger we can be. And actually, frankly, again, in my sort of policy world, there was a report that came out last week around the role of the private sector and actually how private sector was doing harm. Unless we change the narrative around that, unless we work together and demonstrate the positive impact that we're having, you're just going to see much, much more antipathy, and particularly from regulators, they won't believe us. Yeah. So we have to be authentic and we have to take action.
And I agree, working with them as partners is super important, not just whacking them and saying you can't have money. But I think it is, you have to ask and make clear what's important. I know when I was talking to what Taide was saying from P&G yesterday, it's like, if you don't go to the broadcasters and say, we'd really like your the ads to be accessible to people with, auditory issues, if you don't ask, they won't think necessarily to do it, because it's So yes, coming at them with the this is what we'd really like, and we want to work with you to help and show us your pipeline, I think is super important.
I think everybody has, everything has been just said. I just want to add one component is I'm asking you actually to lead and to advise me what I need to do to further push the boundaries. Yeah. Because again, my daily job is not necessarily to go deep into the media landscape. Yeah. So of course, for us, it's very important that we are a sustainable company, a reputation, all these kind of things, but you are the expert. Yeah. So what I'm asking you is, first of all, to partner with the best partner that you have in that specific topic, and secondly, to push me, to challenge me, because you are the only one that can do, because I'm too involved in what I'm doing on a daily basis.
Yeah, absolutely. You're listening to that, Mark? So we have some time to come to the audience for questions before I ask the panel for a closing comment. Do we have any questions from anybody? No? So comprehensive. So we really can get you out of here on time to your next panel. So just, obviously you've got some tech companies here, you've got some people from your agencies, you've got other brand owners. What's the one thing, if you ladder back to this conversation and what we said at the part, how we want to make sure that we're media with a capital M, we're driving maximum impact that we can from the discipline. What is your one ask of the industry?
So for me, it's very clear. Guys, you as a media agency needs to believe that you need to drive and not to be a component at the last moment. But I need you to believe in this.
We do.
And while you're driving, drive a positive change for a more responsible society.
All of this, please. I'm not sure quite how to build on it. I completely agree. We want you to drive, and I think as brand leaders as well, talk to each other, have the conversation. How can we partner together as well to bring that desire and say, to ask you for new challenges and let you help us set a learning and impact agenda.
Yeah. Thank you. I think, just a final thought from me, we talk a lot about culture and the importance of culture, and the most. We've just been doing some work actually on our brand and the positioning of our brand and how we want to show up with our clients. And what I say to our people is, it doesn't matter what the PowerPoint says, what the data sets are, what the tools are. It's how you show up every day with our clients in the room and channeling that pioneering spirit, being bold, being brave, challenging, asking questions. Those are the things that are really, really going to drive impact from a media perspective. So thank you to all of you. I've really enjoyed the conversation, and thanks to everyone for joining us. Have a great day.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.